Welcome to the last panel session of the day, Malaysia, the next data center hub in ASEAN. Accommodating the moderated flow of discussion for this session will be IR1 Murdani Mohamad, Digital Infrastructure and Services MDEC. Take it away, IR1.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you. Hi, welcome. Good afternoon to all participants. The session that we're going to have today is going to talk about a specific topics that of interest to digital economy. As we know that data center is one of the key enablers of digital economy. So we need to build up a stronger ecosystem for us to be able to position Malaysia as a location either for the investments or for the development of the local companies for us to embrace the digital economy in a more sensible way. Okay, we're going to have a exciting session today. On behalf of MDEC, we would like to thank all the panelists who are willing to be part of this specific, exciting panel session on data center. As said by Sean just now, the title is Malaysia as a net data center hub in ASEAN. It's part and parcel of our aspiration to be the capital of the digital capital of the ASEAN. Okay, it's going to be our session. Going to be today is going to be started with a presentation by Mr. Meng. So before that, maybe perhaps I just take a few minutes to introduce or to give a brief of what is the role of MDEC in this specific matter. I am Murdani. I come from the Digital Infrastructure and Services in MDEC. So our role is to build the ecosystem, local ecosystem, as well as to build up the right capability for us to be able to embrace the economy by enabling appropriate development in the data center and also in cybersecurity. So as you can see, the data services is a key ingredient in the digital economy, and it is imperative that Malaysia should be able to have a proper ecosystem of data center for us to either store, process, and also deliver the top-notch digital services, not only to the domestic market, but also to the regional market as well. So in the recent pandemic of COVID-19, it has shown that we need to be able to equip our organization with more and more services of the data center. For example, like the adoption of the cloud is becoming so intense for the past few months because of the need of technology connectivity and also the access of the services that will be able to serve the needs of the organization. So here we are, MDEC, in our division, infrastructure and services. We want to make sure that we have the right intervention in terms of policies, in terms of support, so that we can build up the ecosystem that will be able to cater to the needs of the market. So again, as I said before, we're going to have an exciting session. So before we start with the panel session, I would like to invite my colleague, Mr. Meng, who is heading the data cloud department under the division, under digital infrastructure division. He's going to talk about the specific on the data center. What are the programs that we want to highlight, and also what type of support that we are giving to the industry. What will be the overview and of the industry, current state of the Malaysia and Southeast Asian region, benefits of Malaysia and how Malaysia government has supported the growth, and what is required for Malaysia to be a DC hub, and what finally will be the future outlook of the opportunities. So without further ado, then I'm going to pass over to my colleague, Mr. Meng, who is going to spending some time, about 30 minutes, to share with you what would be the thing that of interest to the attendees in this session. Here, yes, the floor is yours, Meng.
Thank you very much, Jaywan. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon to everybody. So as Wan just mentioned, my team looks at specifically within the data center and cloud ecosystem. And we've been doing this for a very long time. It's coming up to 10 years already. And since the economic transformation program in 2010. So what I have to share here is to give you an idea of current status of Malaysia in terms of the data center ecosystem. So let me just start with. So this is the landscape of Malaysia right now. We have a lot of a rich ecosystem with a lot of players. A lot of companies are locally grown, right? We also have companies who have come in from foreign countries and established their data centers here. Some of them have been with us many years, more than 10 years. We also have a lot of joint ventures between foreign and local companies. So we have really got a rich ecosystem that covers every aspect of the market, everything from wholesale all the way to software as services and so on. So I'll move on to the next one. Okay. One of the things that we don't have right now in Malaysia is investment from the large-scale cloud players. So Google Cloud Platform, Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Services do not have a physical data center in Malaysia yet. We're hoping that one day they will. But they actually provide services to Malaysian customers through what most people call a cloud on-ramp, okay? Which means that they have infrastructure in Malaysia, specifically at the internet exchanges. So for example, we have MyIX, the Malaysian Internet Exchange, as well as a newcomer, DECIX, which is also, I think, previously known as JBIX. And basically, cloud on-ramps allow customers in Malaysia using these cloud platforms to have high speed, high quality, low latency access to the cloud platforms who are based around the world. Okay. So this is a very important step in the right direction, because cloud on-ramp is first step for the entry of these players into the country. And we are hoping that they'll take another step and actually establish a physical presence in Malaysia, which would actually enrich our ecosystem. So this is the kind of thing that we like, that my team looks at. How do we progress the ecosystem to have more players in it? So next, just like to take you through a little bit of history here. When we started in 2010, 2011, Malaysia was a relatively small player in terms of the data center space. Okay, total revenues at the time in 2011 was just over 300 million ringgit. So it was quite a small industry when we started in 2010. But if you look at the progress we've had over the last almost 10 years now, okay, we have been growing at a very impressive pace, double digits pretty much every year except for 2 years. And we are keeping track with the projected revenues that were actually, this projection actually started off in 2010. And it was based on a year-on-year growth. And if you look at the charts, we are pretty close. I mean, of course, there are years that we don't quite meet the target, but there have been years where we exceeded the target. So overall, I think we are doing very well. Malaysia's ecosystem is growing steadily. But one thing I'd like to point out about this slide is we would like to see a steeper growth. This chart is a steady growth, but we would like to see exponential growth. And that's, I think, one of the things that we are hoping to do over the next few years, right? Let me go to the next slide. Okay, so this is basically the data center market overview around the world up to 2024. And this was extracted from Cushman Wakefield's report, Data Centers in Southeast Asia. And they basically look at Southeast Asia growing at a compound annual growth rate of 12.9%, specifically for co-location data centers. And obviously, this is driven by digitalization of businesses and demand for cloud-based services. So as the cloud companies expand their services, they actually put their servers within co-location databases, co-location data centers. And by pushing their infrastructure into each country, they provide better and better quality of service and lower latency for companies to adopt the cloud. Okay, and of course, the other aspect is adoption of artificial intelligence, the growth of IoT deployment, data analytics, and of course, eventually, when 5G rolls out, even more data is going to be generated. Of course, not to leave out social media. Social media has always been a driver of content on the internet, and I think based on what we have seen so far, social media is not slowing down; it's accelerating. And of course, with these numbers actually may not have taken into account the impact of COVID-19 on the world, as more and more companies digitalize at a higher rate than expected. So companies who never really had a plan to digitalize are actually seriously looking at digitalization because of COVID-19. And this will create an even greater acceleration in the growth for data centers as well as cloud services. So we expect that it, the numbers are going to be unpredictable over the next few years. Next, so where do we go from here? All right, I think I'd like to spend a little bit of time on this to explain what we have here. The charts actually come from DE, CIX, and Telegeography report. This is hot off the press. This is the title of the report is the New Interconnection Markets in Southeast Asia, and was released in November 2020. So this looks at where Malaysia is versus our ASEAN partners. So we have Singapore, Jakarta, Kuala Lumpur, Bangkok, Manila, and Hanoi. So if you look at the cloud ecosystems, Singapore has the most mature ecosystem. All the major players have got not just the cloud on-ramps, but actually cloud regions within Singapore. And if you look at the chart on the right-hand side, it shows international bandwidth by city 2019. And Singapore is way ahead of the rest of ASEAN. Okay, and of course, if you take the next one down, Jakarta is the next hub. Alibaba, AWS, and Google have already announced. Well, Alibaba has an operational cloud region in Jakarta, and AWS and Google have also made announcements about construction of their regions in Jakarta. They also have, obviously, the cloud on-ramps. So next down the list, obviously, here comes Kuala Lumpur. We already have Alibaba's cloud region in KL, well, in the Klang Valley, and we have the cloud on-ramps by all four players. So I think it's very clear to see that where the action is going to be next. So if we get all our policies and incentives right, I think KL is going to be the next hub. And since the infrastructure from the big boys are already here, I think it's just a small step to that we hope that they will come in with their regions as well. Okay, and I think one thing that a lot of people may fear is that once these people come in, they may cannibalize the local market. But I think the difference is that there's always a niche for local players, and the market for co-location to cope with the servers that these guys bring in will definitely boost our local ecosystem. So we see it as a win-win. This will not be an issue that it will impact our local ecosystem. It will add to our ecosystem and help us grow faster. So that's the exponential growth that we are hoping to see in Malaysia in the future. Okay, so obviously we are not far ahead of Bangkok, Manila, and Hanoi. So there's a lot of competition between all of us, and we hope that KL will be the next one. Okay, let me move on to the next slide. So how do we do that? Okay, so the global supply chain is basically a flow of commodities and goods. Now, if you look at this chart, this shows every little tiny dot. Unfortunately, because of the resolution, you probably cannot see the dots clearly. But the dots represent, every dot represents a single ship that is traveling from place to place. Okay, so if you can see, there are lines along the whole map. These lines actually made up by these tiny dots show you the key shipping lines throughout the world. Okay, so let me move to the next slide to give you a clearer view, because let's zoom into Southeast Asia. So this is ASEAN. As you can see the dots clearer, but I think let me move one more step. Oh, sorry, I have the dots actually show you, I actually had a line show you to clarify where the dots are going. Now, The reason I'm showing you this chart, it's got nothing to do with internet or data centers right now. This is shipping. It's because the Straits of Malacca is an extremely important waterway. If you look at the dots, these are ships that go from the Indian Ocean to the South China Sea, and of course the other way around as well. Now, why am I showing you this? Okay, the reason is because the only railway to get from east to west is through this narrow Strait of Malacca, right? So ships all do this. Okay, let me just go on to the next slide. So this is the global data supply chain, the flow of digital goods and services. So this basically is the equivalent of the ship map I showed you earlier, where you can see dots representing ships. In this case, the lines represent international connections from country to country through what is called submarine cables. These are massive cables carrying data from one country to another, which are laid across the oceans. And let me again go to the next step. These are where the big giant cloud players have their data centers. So we have Microsoft, Google, Amazon Web Services, and they manufacture shiny new digital products. So they are the equivalent of the physical factories. These are where most of the data is stored in terms of cloud platforms, right? And the lines in the previous slide basically interconnect some of these data centers that the big players have around the world. Okay, so let me just move on. Next is basically zooming into ASEAN and East Asia. I've placed the location of AWS, Google Cloud Platform, and Microsoft Azure data centers around the region. And we can see immediately around Malaysia, we have Singapore and Jakarta, and of course the other countries around the region. Now, the reason I'm highlighting this slide is because where the submarine cables go, the data centers will be there, right? So when you look at data center infrastructure, international connectivity infrastructure is an important part of it as well. It's two sides of the same equation. So if you say connectivity is the super highways of the internet, then data centers are the cities of the internet, right? So highways must go to a city. A city without highways is basically not very well connected and will not grow into a city. So it's two sides of the same coin. You cannot have one without the other. Okay. Next, I just wanted to highlight a few more things. The reason why I'm highlighting this is because the telecommunications market has changed. In the past, it was about giant telecommunications companies like AT&T, British Telecom, Sprint, and so on. They basically formed consortiums to build these submarine cables throughout the world. Okay. However, recently, trend started by Google, but followed by Microsoft, Facebook, as well as Amazon Web Services, is that these giant companies are have been actually investing in building submarine cables throughout the world. Now, why is this different? In the past, telecommunications companies basically had joint ventures with each other, and they deployed this infrastructure to share the capacity of the cables that cross the oceans. Okay, the difference between the telcos and these new giant internet players is this: telcos sell the bandwidth to users as and when a user requests it. So if you are a company wanting to connect let's take this map for example. So if you are a company in Spain and you wanted to connect to your branch office in the United States, then you would lease capacity from the telco from one side to the other, okay? And you would buy whatever capacity you want, 10 megabits, 1 gigabit, 10 gigabits, whatever you require for your business, right? The difference that these global internet giants do with submarine cables is when they build a submarine cable, they don't ramp up the capacity on the cable according to customer demand. They turn it on immediately. The entire capacity of the cable is turned on for usage. Okay, so if you can look at this cable, this is Maria. Facebook and Microsoft are the co-owners in here, together with a telecom company, Telefonica of Spain. So this goes from Spain to the United States. It has 8 fiber pairs. So if you imagine 8 strands of optical fiber, not much thicker than your hair, going across the ocean, carrying 160 terabits per second of initial capacity. This is a huge amount of bandwidth that is crossing the oceans. So this is the kind of scale of infrastructure that the big global giants bring to the market. So let me go on to the next slide. This is another one. This is an example of crossing the Pacific Ocean this time, from the United States to basically Asia. So there's landings in Japan, Korea, China, Hong Kong, Taiwan. Okay, so this is the new cross-Pacific cable, and this has investment from Microsoft, together with China Telecom, China Unicom, Taiwan's Chunghua Telecom, Korea Telecom, obviously, China Mobile, and SoftBank. So as you can see, each country has a landing where there's a partner involved. Okay, again, 8 terabits per second of initial capacity. Having this kind of submarine cables was unheard of in the days of the traditional telco businesses. Okay, and last slide, I think this is my last slide. Again, this is another cable. This is the Jupiter cable. Amazon and Facebook are the partners in this cable, and this goes from the United States to Japan and to Philippines. Okay, of course the partners are Amazon, Facebook, NTT, PLDT of Philippines, PCCW of Hong Kong, and SoftBank Telecom. So interesting cable again. The two internet giants are major partners in this cable, and I'm just interested to know why is it stopping in the Philippines and not going on further to the rest of Southeast Asia. So just think about it. This is a very interesting situation today. In order for Malaysia to want to attract this kind of investments into Malaysia, we need to attract the submarine cables to come to Malaysia. Okay, so I'm not going to skip back to the previous slide, but I'll just continue talking from here. Malaysia's role at the moment in ASEAN is that we are basically an off-ramp to the cloud for basically customers in Malaysia to access the cloud services. In order for Malaysia to become part of the superhighway, these giant cloud players installing their installing the infrastructure in Malaysia, we need to have these submarine cables land in Malaysia as well. Okay, so the policies that Malaysian government needs to adopt will need to encourage these submarine cables to land in Malaysia, to allow these superhighways to actually cross Malaysia from east to west. So I believe Malaysia has a role in ASEAN to enable traffic to move from the Indian Ocean to the South China Sea. At the moment, it's all going down the narrow Straits of Malacca. Malaysia has a very progressive role that we can play by allowing this traffic to actually cross Malaysia in order to become part of this superhighway rather than be an off-ramp for the superhighway. So I think with that, I think I'm close to ending already. So I think this is the last slide that I would like to talk about. So if you can scan that, that QR code will give you my information to contact me. So with that, I thank you for listening, and I would like to hand it back to Encik Wan Murdani. Thank you.
Thank you, Zimeng, for a quite interesting and piece of presentation. So if I may recap and may highlight again of what I have said earlier, I think Malaysia, we are at the right time or at the right junction for us to choose our path. Because as we drive the adoption of digital economy, and then data center is one of the nucleus that would put us on the global map. So whether we are positioned rightfully to attract the investments, and also as well as pushing for the investment to help to strengthen our local ecosystem. So those are the aspiration that we have to be able to realize, so that we can fulfill our overall digital economy aspiration. So again, thank you, Zimeng, for that piece of information. And now we're going to move to our next agenda. I'm going to go to the panel session. I think we have here quite an exciting panelists who are willing to share their knowledge and to share their knowledge, and also to share what are the best practices, what will be the advice, what will be the lesson learned that we all can take away from this session. And hopefully with that kind of information, we'll be able to strengthen or improve on how we do things for us to be able to support our digital economy. So before I start, let me just take this opportunity to introduce our esteemed panelists. We have first Mr. Llyod Lee, Vice President of Sales AIMS Data Center. And Mr. Llyod Lee is currently the VP of Sales of AIMS, and also Asia Pacific Regional Sales Head for OTT Division under Time Group level. So as VP of Sales, he's responsible to develop business strategy and opportunities, create sales leads, and building channel partners for the company. And he has been instrumental in leading the sales team to grow to new revenue and maintain double-digit growth. So Llyod, thank you for being part of this on behalf of MDEC and the organizer. Our next esteemed panelist is Mr. Eric Fu, who is the Acting Head Cloud Security and Infrastructure Services, CS1, Hitachi Sunway Information System, one of the other strong local players who have partnered with Hitachi. This is one of the things that put a greater testimonial of our ability to attract the right partners outside Malaysia. So Eric, he's responsible for the overall business strategy and services delivery capability. He has more than 20 years experience in ICT industry, holding key management in IBM, Sun Microsystem, Astro, and Niaga. So prior to joining Hitachi Sunway, he has served as a GM of product and services business division at Niaga for 5 years, and he has launched and grow the hybrid cloud and managed security services business in the market. So he holds a Bachelor of Electrical Engineering from University of Technology, Malaysia. So thank you, Eric, for agreeing to be part of this panel. We really appreciate the industry support in this thing. And lastly, we have Mr. Patrick Chang, who is Vice President South Asia for Uptime Institute. So Uptime Institute is one of our key partners as part of capacity building, bringing the wealth of knowledge and technical know-how in helping to strengthen our ecosystem in Malaysia. So Mr. Patrick Chan is responsible for all commercial business development and service delivery activities within ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand, Oceania, and Fiji Islands. So he has over 30 years experience, leadership experience in both ICT and data center services, and has been working throughout Europe, Asia, and Australia with client engagement, both strategy and business development. So he joined Uptime Institute in 2013. Prior to joining Uptime Institute, Patrick was Emerson Network Power was with Emerson Network Power, IBM Malaysia, and Hewlett Packard. So he holds MBA from Herac University at Edinburgh, UK. So thank you, Patrick, for agreeing to be part in this panel. So again, we have a very exciting lineup of experts in our panel. So perhaps I'm going to just just to initiate the ball rolling. Perhaps I just invite each of the panelists to give context of where they're coming from and what kind of expectation that the organization is delivering, so that we can have a sense of what kind of players that we have currently operating in Malaysia. Maybe 1 or 2 minutes each that open up to each of you. Maybe we start with Mr. Llyod Lee.
Hi, I'm Llyod from AIMS. Basically, AIMS is a data center service provider, one of the pioneers in Malaysia, that we have been running data center for over 20 years. I have seen the industry grow almost double digit from the day I joined in 2006 until now. Our data center has been growing from initially 5,000 square feet to today. We have over 1,000 square feet of space. So it's a very exciting industry that the company is in. Yeah, I hope in this panel I'll be able to share our growth stories. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Llyod. Eric?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eric. I'm from Hitachi Sunway. Hitachi Sunway is a joint venture company between Hitachi System in Japan and Sunway Technology Group, part of the Sunway Group, Malaysia. So we have been operating since about 7 years ago. 2013 was the JV form. And we have grown since then, where started off as just pure data center services and system integration business until today, where we have built our own cloud, our hybrid cloud framework. We also have expanded our data center with our partners from Cyberjaya to, in fact, AIMS is also one of our partner providing the data center facilities in KL. And also we have another data center in Bandar Sunway, serving the community within that region. So with this session, I would like to share some of the experience that I have in the industry, as well as specifically from Hitachi Sunway. Thanks, Juan.
Thank you, Eric. Patrick, over to you.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Hope everybody is staying well. Basically, Uptime Institute was existed in Malaysia, I believe 8 years ago, since I first joined 2013. Now, what is Uptime Institute? Especially the global leader for digital infrastructure on tier standards. And what's tier standards is basically ensuring your data center are being independently, unbiased, certified, and audited on resiliency. In my past experience and during my course of work, there are a lot of data centers that have been built, and I'm seeing a lot of data centers right now coming up in Malaysia, which I will share later, and where we are compared to the rest of ASEAN. And building a data center is just one part of the whole journey. It is important that while you build, you need to understand you are serving the clients, your shareholders, your investors, and what Uptime Institute basically advocates is a strong understanding of what resiliency is and how it is done. So over this course of next couple of minutes and for our next hour, I hope that I could share with you some of our experiences and true life stories. Thank you, Juan.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. And okay, perhaps I'm going to start first questions to the panel. Perhaps I'm going to start with Mr. Llyod Lee on perhaps your thoughts on what are the characteristics you think needs to exist for a country to be a data center hub. Maybe you can give your opinion on this one, Llyod.
Okay, so basically, you look at it, Malaysia itself is a very good location to set up your data center footprint. First of all, geographically, it is centrally located in the ASEAN region. You draw a radius of 2,500 kilometers. You can reach basically all the 10 ASEAN countries within a latency of less than 60 milliseconds. So with this, you can set up a hub to serve a caption of about 650 million people. So location-wise, I mean, strategically, Malaysia is very good strategically located. Other than that, in terms of natural disaster, Malaysia is a very stable country. There's no typhoon, there's no earthquake. So we are no worried that the infrastructure that you set up are subject to all these kind of risks. Thirdly, in terms of land and power, I would say there are plenty of land for data center player to build their data center. And TMB itself provide a very stable power grid as compared to other countries. I think Malaysia is ranked number 8 in the world for ease of getting electricity. I think all these are very good factors for all the players to consider when they want to set up a data center, when they select which country to set up. Finally, I think Malaysia has a very good pool of competitive talent pool. You can find engineers easily and at a very competitive rate. Yeah, that's my thought on how Malaysia can be a very good hub for data center player to consider.
Thank you, Llyod. Thank you, Llyod. I think you have put up a quite interesting 3 or 4 criteria that Malaysia has. What are the potential that for Malaysia to be a data center hub? Maybe perhaps I just and you mentioned ASEAN as well. Perhaps I want to move to Eric, since you are part of the your organization is partnering the Japanese company. So perhaps your thought on taking cue from where Llyod came from, that Malaysia has what it takes to be a DC hub. So from your point of view, how do you see specifically Malaysia as a location for data center? That means because I know Hitachi has a few footprints in the region, right? Not only in Malaysia, Sunway Hitachi, they have some footprint in Thailand and some part of other ASEAN. So what is your view of Malaysia within ASEAN? Where do we stand?
Thanks, Wan. So I believe Malaysia is well positioned, basically, to become the next data center hub in the region, given the availability of the land and the relatively, cheaper power tariff, excellent infrastructure, availability of the talent, like what Llyod has mentioned, and also the strong support from the government, specifically, agency like MDEC. I believe as Singapore data center reach a saturation point, Malaysia will and should be the next best choice in consideration. Just now looking at what Ziming has shared, I think I fully agree the data network connectivity is as important, in order to really make Malaysia as the next best choice. So I hope the government, as well as the government agency, would be able to support this initiative to attract the big giant investment company to really, have their termination point of their submarine cable to be landed in the Malaysian region. I think that will definitely help Malaysia to become the next data center hub in the region.
Thank you, Eric. So now perhaps I want to get the independent view from Patrick, coming from the head of Uptime Institute. You have been working a lot with so many data center operators in the region. So perhaps your view, Patrick, from the perspective of Uptime Institute, where do we stand in terms of capability, in terms of our readiness to be able to serve or to at par with our regional competitors? Any view on this thing, Patrick?
Thanks, Juan. Yeah, I've been to, I cover South Asia. I've seen data centers that grow leaps and bounds every year. And even right now, as we speak of the COVID-19, everybody's saying that, economy is down, economy is slow. And that's not true. And from the Uptime Institute point of view, we are basically working, churning out projects after projects on ensuring those data centers that built have been audited. Now, let me go back to the very basic of the characteristic that if a particular country wants to be a DC hub. Now, business, as you know, are universally influenced by big data, and studies have indicated that adoption of digital transformation industry contributes revenue to country's economy. So how do we pinpoint what is the criteria to be a DC hub? We look at basically the 4 basic key points. Actually, there are basically 2 more, 6, but I would just do the 4 points. The 4 points is what we all know. It's called, very simple, it's called the PEST, the PEST. The political side of it, we need a strong, stable government with good fiscal policies to attract investors through its friendly policies. Example, tax incentives like pioneer status, easy to do business with, etc. And the economical side, the widening of the net of e-commerce is one of the most important factors to boost the growth of data centers. The other demand drivers include government smart cities initiative. E-government cities like some of the countries in ASEAN are actually doing it, and rapid adoption of technologies like the IoT, cloud services, and big data analytics. The other one is social. The point is social, setting and achieving high standards when it comes to technical education. Universities and other institutions will play an important role, such as introducing initiatives which focus on data science and artificial intelligence, partnering with tech companies to develop big data talent they need to thrive. Pair this with the ease of doing business with English, being a strong language, and the proposition is irresistible. Last, we come with technology, last but not least. As we talk about cable landing stations or submarine cables are vital international telecommunications links between countries across the world, making them as an essential element in telecommunications services, including broadband connectivity, which includes providing high-speed connectivity to support companies looking to expand their big data operations in that particular country. After all, the ability to process data quickly, reliably, effectively, and most important, the resilience in such as certifications on its digital infrastructure does depend, at least in part, on the speed and quality of a company's connectivity. However, having improvement in high internet speed and significant internet penetration rates needs and allow further innovation, investment, and growth in big data centers, example, adoption of AI, machine learning, IoT, 5G, and beyond. Today, these continuously advancing segments make a country an extremely attractive location for external organizations and influencers looking for an appropriate DC hub. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. It's quite interesting point that you have. So, years ago, we see the industry was competing so much on the low values revenue, such as floor space, web servers hosting. And now we have seen more and more high value services are coming up, and then those who have a bigger appetite for that kind of innovation would have more opportunities to capture the market. So perhaps I'm going to open up to the floor. What is the pivot in the transformation of the DC industry from where it was like 10 years ago to where we are at this point of time? I think Patrick mentioned about all the big data analytics, IoT. So back then we were competing pretty much on the space, on the floor space, to get companies to put up their servers and things like that. But now the differentiation is on the high value services. So perhaps I'm just going to throw out to any of the panelists who want to give any view. What is the future of data center?
Maybe I'll try first.
Yes, okay, got it.
Okay, so I believe apart from those big data center or the cloud providers like Amazon, Azure, Google, a local cloud service provider like Hitachi Sunway also can play a role, as part of the digital transformation service provider. So I think co-location is the very basic service, and most company also is already moving away by just buying some servers and co-locate at a specific data center. They are expecting the service provider to do more than that, right? So they are expecting service provider to even operate end to end, from the making sure the virtual machine is up and running, the backup is done, or even their disaster recovery is done properly. So we are actually looking at providing that kind of end-to-end service moving forward, apart from the co-location service, which we still do. But we would like to do more value-added service, beyond the pure co-lo offerings. So I believe moving forward, managed service provider has an important role to play. A local cloud service provider also can complement those big global cloud provider, especially when it comes to total cost of ownership perspective, because I think a lot of the SMEs, they are not sure how to even migrate over to a cloud environment, or maybe how do they transform in a more accelerated mode to be more digital savvy. So that's where I think as a local or regional managed service provider, we can actually contribute, as part of this journey moving forward.
Thank you. I think you pointed the right thing, that because you pointed about a more greater adoption of the cloud and greater provision of services in the cloud. But that brings back me to the fundamental questions of whether do we have enough talent for us to grow in that niche area. So I'm under the impression that we do not have the right mix of talent in doing that kind of services. You talk about the single cloud, multi-cloud environment. So where do we stand? I mean, is that a challenge? Is it a challenge that we cannot resolve, or are we in the right track to produce the right talent for us to be able to embrace that kind of change?
May I say
Yes.
something on this?
Yes, Patrick.
Okay,
yes.
basically what I think about Malaysia's data center and the cloud industry. Let me put it in this way, the DC providers right now, both local and international, will continue to grow, while large international data center specialists and international content and cloud providers have yet to enter Malaysia to the same extent seen in more advanced markets such as Singapore and Hong Kong. However, the interest in the Malaysian market I see is now increasing. But before I continue, Uptime Institute actually had done a survey on this in the survey for 2020. And one of the questions we asked is would more use public cloud if providers were more transparent? I mean, what is that adoption of public cloud if they were being transparent? We did basically about 400 over questionnaires, people, the surveys for that. And out of that, 52% basically replied and responded that we don't place mission critical workloads into public clouds and have no plans to do so. On the other hand, we have 21% who says we don't place mission critical workloads into public clouds and would be more likely to do so if there was a higher level of viability into the operational resilience of the service. And I share with you on that because yesterday I was on the call with one customer who is actually on the cloud. And because it was built in such a way where there was a fire, it affected the whole transformer. And the whole cloud was down for 5 hours. So you see how bad that is. And the other balance, 70% says that we place mission critical workloads into public clouds and we have adequate viability into the operational resiliency of this service. And the balance 10% says we place these mission critical workloads into public clouds, but we do not think we are adequate visibility into the operational resiliency of the service. Therefore, being presented and demand in Malaysia is beginning basically to drive the increasing adoption of cloud-based services by both local and international business. However, Malaysia is increasingly looking into be a regional hub for industries such as manufacturing, logistics, and big data analytics. This is driving more organizations to invest in a cloud system, which are in turn driving the need for more data centers. That's what the reason why I see right now, and not just here, but we have in Singapore and even in Thailand and Indonesia is beginning to see all this happening. The entry of international cloud players will in turn will drive more multinationals to invest in Malaysia. In turn, multimedia content providers and cloud companies are driving strong demand for data center storage and networking in Malaysia. There are a growing number of young consumers who accesses high levels of data daily to watch movies, upload photos and videos, play games, make cashless payments, and with the effect of the COVID-19 virtual conferences, what we are having now. This is attracting data center operators to bring data and cloud storage closer to the consumers. Thank you.
Okay, it's quite interesting input. So Patrick, thank you for sharing that number. Okay, again, let me just take one topic on the talent, because as part of our aspiration to build up a stronger ecosystem, whether we are bringing in the foreign investments or we are enhancing a local investment or even a partnership, I think as we want to drive our service delivery towards managed services, high-value services, so talent is very important. So maybe Llyod, or you want to share what would be your strategy in developing the talent pool so that you are able to serve the needs of the market now and also in the future.
I believe that we are not short of talent that manage data center, right? To manage a data center, you need some engineers who know the power background, how to do maintenance and so on. But in terms of managed services, I believe we have the skill set. We have many MNC company, right? When they set up their presence here, like Aptos, all these, they are shared services. They manage the company IT anyway for the big corporation. So I don't believe that we have a shortage of talent pool. And also the industry is actually working very closely with the universities to provide internship program and so on to build up the talent pool. It's a matter of actually providing the right incentive for them to join the workforce, and also a good training ground for them. So I don't believe talent pool is a big challenge to attract global industry to come into Malaysia. Whereas I think currently the most challenging portion of the industry which is facing is the connectivity that is landing into Malaysia. Like what Meng has shared, right? In terms of number of cables that land in Malaysia, there are not many as compared to Singapore. So the government need to put in place a very good attractive policy to attract more strategic cable that come into the country. If our focus is to focus on ASEAN, right, we should build more cables to connect into country like Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia. We have no cables connecting into Indonesia currently. All the cables are connecting via Singapore. So when you want to serve the region, you have to go down to Singapore, then serve all these countries. That make it not very cost effective to bring down the connectivity costs. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks. I think we know that connectivity and data center are two components that cannot be treated separately. If you want to strengthen or increase the capacity of data center in Malaysia or any particular country, then you have to have equivalent capacity of the submarine cable for you to be able to serve both domestic and international market. So again, we take note that of your view just now on connectivity. So because I wanted to discuss on the challenges that the industry wants the government to address. So perhaps connectivity is one of the key criteria that we have to take into account when drawing up the policies to make sure that investment in that area is coming up. So my question is that when we want to promote the submarine cable investment, maybe Eric or Llyod can give you, or even Patrick. So who do you think should be the one that we should be focusing on? Are we asking the data center providers to co-invest in the submarine cable, or are we expecting a totally independent submarine cable to invest and work based on a commercial basis with data center operator? So what would be the view of the industry in this case?
Let me contribute. I think the data center itself need not to be invest in submarine cable itself. You see, the big content providers themselves are already investing heavily into subsea. What they need is for the government to have a friendly policy so that their cable can land into the country. And also, if there is any outages that happen to the cable that need repair work and so on, this can be done in a very effective and cost-effective way. What we need is a very consistent business policy in place. But recently, what happened, as you know, that for the past few days, there are debate in the parliament that the Malaysia government is taking away the cabotage exemption on the repair ship. All these policies are not helping the industry. So when the government is put forward certain policy that help to drive the industry, they should follow through and then don't change the policy halfway through. This will actually jeopardize the image of foreign investment into the country. That's the viewpoint.
To add on to Llyod, if I may, as I mentioned, one of the characteristics of investment, of getting people, is one of the political side. I think what Llyod was mentioning about the cabotage policies, I think it has to be business friendly. It has to attract people, and the least any government should do is to interfere or regulate into such policies and infrastructure, because other countries are not doing it, and if we are doing it, this basically will deter investments. That's my thought.
Yeah. So it's a fair comment from the industry, which I believe different ministry or different owner of that policy, I think they obviously they should take this with more careful thought to make sure that we wouldn't discourage investments in Malaysia. So I mean, we hope that the ministries will be able to strike a balance between protecting a local ecosystem, and also how do we make sure that we are giving the right exposure for the investments to come into Malaysia. So again, any connectivity. So Eric, any view on, because the reason I highlight this thing, because we have seen more, the trend is more for, especially for a global CSP or global cloud service provider or global DC players, when they come to a new market, they want to make sure that they have equal capacity in terms of connectivity. So that's why that has led to them investing in that as well, to make sure that they can control the capacity. So maybe Eric, from coming from perspective of the JV with the foreign companies, what is your view on this thing? How much should data center be involved in the submarine cable?
Okay, first of all, I agree with what Llyod and Patrick has said. Definitely, I think in terms of government policies, there has to be on par, if not better than the neighboring country. That's the first part. I think that's quite clearly defined. In terms of the investment itself, I mean, if typically the telco and all those large content providers would have a bigger gain or a bigger interest in this kind of huge investment. So as a data center service provider or a cloud service provider, we may not be in the same league. We talk about this kind of investment and own partial of the submarine cable. So I think in terms of attracting the investment, I think the investor are ready to invest or even land their cable in Malaysia. But some of these constraint, I think, is the obstacle that we need to.
So if I may interject, Eric, so your thought is we have enough domestic demand that would drive the investment in submarine cable. The only thing is we need to address the regulatory issues to make sure that investment of that nature can come in easily into Malaysia. Am I right?
Okay, so you talk about the domestic demand.
Yeah.
I believe our SME is one of the largest in terms of to contribute our GDP growth even across the region. Although our population relatively may not be as big compared to the other neighboring country, but the SME, which has not been fully digitalized, is definitely a huge potential. Yeah. And I think in terms of population also, we have the demographic wise, we are a relatively young country. So the internet reach to throughout the country, I think is probably more than 80% by now. So all these are actually good conditions for those submarine cable to land in Malaysia and then use Malaysia as a springboard going back to the region or as part of the connectivity around the globe. So I think Malaysia as a country, with the population and with the talent pool and with the rest of the condition, we are attractive. But we just, I think we need to put all these policies and the rest of the stakeholders and the whole ecosystem supporting each other to make it happen, basically.
So perhaps I'm going to ask a related questions. Maybe from your perspective, maybe you can be open and frank on what is the current, how has the Malaysian government has been supporting DC and cloud industry? Maybe from both Eric and Llyod, and maybe Patrick can also chip in. what do you think whether is the government giving enough support? Are we in the right direction to understand the needs of the industry, or any thought that you want to highlight, specific thought you want to highlight with regard to the support from the government?
Okay, I think the government has been giving quite a lot of support to the data center industry. Few years ago, they even set up some funding to help the local industry, and the establishment of MDCA, Malaysia Data Center Alliance, to actually help the industry to have a forum to discuss the problem together, and also have overseas conference and so on to promote Malaysia as a data center hub. So all these are very good initiatives by the government to help the industry. On top of that, I mean, about 10 years ago, the government actually also put in some effort to set up the Malaysia Internet Exchange, MYIX. With this exchange, actually it helps to drive down the connectivity cost in Malaysia. I believe all these initiatives are very good initiatives that actually help the local data center industry to grow.
Thank you, Llyod. Eric, any thought on the level of support by the government?
Okay, so coming from a Japanese joint venture company, I think Japanese tech company has been working very closely with the government for many years. MDEC also has been playing a very crucial role and having regular dialogues with the Japanese tech companies, right? Creating an investor-friendly environment and also facilitate the foreign direct investment. So Hitachi Sunway also has benefited over the years, working closely with MDEC specifically. And we feel that with the digital transformation being accelerated due to the pandemic, more and more companies are really putting their business online, moving their traditional on-premise data centers to the managed service provider or the cloud. So all this, I think, and then the Malaysian government also has been encouraging, digital economy. So all this, I will see, will be the catalyst for the, the further development or the further growth of the DC and cloud industry moving forward.
Thank you, Eric. Patrick, any thought on this thing? On the what do you think government's role in this thing?
Sorry.
What do you think? What do you think about government's support intervention with regard to the supporting the DC industry?
Okay, my response to this is that the support should not be a full stop. It should be a comma. It should look at continuous improvement, constant comparison, and a deep sense of self-analysis, like what Meng had shown in the graph of late. You may not meet your target. Is there a reason why the target is not met? Now, over the past 5 to 10 years or more recent, there has been significant data centers built, additions to existing capacity as new providers do enter in the Malaysian market. Now, there is a window. I always say there's always a windows of opportunity to basically grasp that opportunity. And Malaysia is undergoing and continue to undergo a development of adjustment as absorb new capacities from recent data center investment across markets, including Singapore. Now, you know that Singapore right now have a moratorium in place, and it's going to be like up to 2021. So where do we grab that overspill or supply or on that moratorium? What are strategies to attract this? And Hong Kong and Japan and China. Now, you know that of late, China has come up with the national security law, and a lot of data centers there are a bit edgy. And of late, you can see a lot of investments from China is coming into Malaysia. Okay, and I know there are a couple more, but because of NDA, I'm not in the liberty to basically talk more about that. But all I can say, there are data centers now spreading into Malaysia, and we need to grasp that. And how do we grasp that? The government have to give incentives, friendly policies, less bureaucracies, to set up data centers. And someone was mentioning, is just only West Malaysia or is just Peninsular Malaysia? No, because from the Uptime Institute perspective, we actually have worked or collaborate with a data center in Kuching. It will be the first tier 4, or you call it fault tolerant data center in Kuching. And they will be basically, they have landing cables, you know, and they will be one of the showcase for the country as a whole, to show to the rest of the ASEAN countries. Okay, so at the end of the day, my only basically summary is that we need to have a strong digital talent, robust tech ecosystem, and a digitally advanced savvy population that will make this Malaysia an ideal regional hub. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. So I think actually I had a question from the floor asking, I mean, on behalf of East Malaysia, Sabah and Sarawak, is there any plan to build a DC here locally, as most of the DC players are focusing only in West Malaysia? I think Patrick just partially answered that question just now, right? Right, Patrick?
Yes. I put on mute just now. Yes, yeah, because I'm involved in that, and there are a couple more in the West Malaysia that are basically talking to the Uptime Institute, basically in terms of getting our technical advice. So it's all part of the ecosystem. You know, everything is all part of the ecosystem, and you know, and that's where, you know, Uptime Institute is happy to support the data center industry, the MDECs, you know, and the rest of those MDECs around this region.
So perhaps I mean, still on that specific questions, maybe I'm just giving a brief on in my capacity as an MDEC employee. So again, yes, as Patrick said, we do have inquiries and some leads from investors who want to establish a DC data center in Sarawak and Sabah. Obviously, those region has the opportunities. They have some natural resources. So those are the untapped market. So it's a matter of time. All it take is one pioneer, first mover investor to put up their investment in those region, and I think there will be a natural progression from that thing. So again, just have to answer that question. That yes, there are opportunities that we are bringing in those in those regions. Okay, coming back to this thing. Maybe since just now, I think Eric mentioned about the importance of SMEs. Again, of course, SME contributes about 40% to national GDP. Obviously, we cannot take that lightly. Any impact on SME will have an impact on digital economy. So again, because I think the issue, not the issue, I think the challenge that we may have is the rate of adoption of SME may be slower as compared to enterprise enterprise user, because of the skill sets, because of maybe the financial constraints and the exposures. So coming from the perspective of the from the supplier of services, what would be the offerings that would come from the industry that would help to get SME to be on board with this thing faster and quicker and cheaper? So maybe Eric and Llyod want to share what would be the offerings that the industry may have, so that we can uplift the capability of SMEs and help them to transform digitally.
Maybe I'll start first.
Yes.
I think first of all is the awareness. I think the SMEs has been all the while, start off as like maybe like a mom and pop shop, and then slowly grow to a size with like 100, 200 employees. They may not know the importance of digitization or even digitalization. So we need to make them aware. And I think the pandemic sort of helped a bit, because I think when, during the MCO, CMCO and all this, where people can't move around that freely, and those purely based on brick and mortar type of business, they suffer a lot, right? Without an online presence, without even those offices also, they may not be, without the proper internet connectivity platform, they may not be able to continue their tasks at home. So all this has given a lot more awareness, to the SMEs, the importance of digitalization. So then with that, as from the service provider perspective, we are actually now trying to come out with a more comprehensive as a service model, knowing most SMEs may not have their in-house resources or expertise. So we want to give the SMEs a very easy to adopt kind of offering where they will just pay a subscription fee, and then we will able to provide the end-to-end service to them, from the data center hosting to help them migrate whatever workload they may have, and then operate for them, including whatever backup requirements, disaster recovery, and all this, and even cybersecurity, which is also a very important aspect, right, in terms of protecting their data. So all this, I think, is a very important aspect, from the awareness until helping them to realize their digital transformation dream.
Yes, thank you. It's nice to hear such offering from the industry, because I think we have to work together in empowering the SMEs to be not to be left behind in this transformation. Maybe Llyod, any comment, anything from AIMS that is targeted to strengthen SMEs in this digital space?
Actually, we play the role of enabler, right? With us, there are many smaller cloud players and hosting providers that put their infrastructure at our location. So their focus is actually helping the SME to be on board in the digital journey. And I believe this is where the local smaller cloud player can play a very big role in helping the SME. If you rely on the big cloud player to help them, there's no way that they are going to entertain them, right? Like if you want to do any customization on AWS or Google Cloud, there's no way that they will actually look into the issue that you face. But the local smaller or medium-sized cloud player, they are there. They are to listen to you and 24/7 supporting your needs and so on. So there's both end of they are along the value chain, right? There's a role for everyone to play.
Right. Okay. I have another question from the floor related to the earlier question, still with regard to the opportunities in Sabah and Sarawak. I think because as most of the connectivity and traffics from East Malaysia still flowing through still have to go through the main hubs in West Malaysia, whether local or international. So this has caused a greater latency in terms of the traffic. So maybe I think on MDEC side, I think as I said before, it's a chicken and egg. So if you are able to drive the data services investment into those market, that means the connectivity will come in, and vice versa. Maybe I'm not sure. Maybe Llyod, you can just give your perspective on how MyIX has or addressing this kind of latency.
Actually, MYX has set up a node in Kuching and also, I believe, in Sabah as well, in KK, to address the local connectivity needs. Apart from, to drive data center growth in Sabah and Sarawak, I believe the local government has to play a bigger role. First of all, they have to drive digitization from the government itself, right? If they put more services in a digital way, it will promote the industry to set up their presence within the state itself to serve the local. Yeah.
Okay, so in essence, MyIX has at least addressed some latency issues. I would suppose, right, Llyod?
Yes.
Yeah.
They are there. Yeah.
So, and I also believe SKMM also is doing the connectivity between East and West Malaysia to make the pipe bigger between the two regions, right?
There are subsea cable between between Sabah, Sarawak to West Malaysia. Yeah.
All right. So again, maybe from Steve, from the investment perspective, when we talk about positioning Malaysia as a next data center hub in ASEAN, it means that we have to attract both domestic and foreign investments. So and then I believe as a country, whatever investment that is coming in, if brings a high value to the country, that's something that we have to support and make it happen. So maybe from your perspective, Eric, from your, or even Patrick or Llyod, from the perspective of local companies or partnership companies like Sunway, Hitachi or Uptime. So what is your thought, whether should we differentiate the support given to local potential local investments as opposed to giving certain assistance to the foreign direct investment? So what do you think that we should do in this thing? What is your view? Should we support? Should we give equal treatments, or should we not support foreign investment? Should give more support to local investors? So because I said before, we need capacity. We need both investments, whether local or foreign investments. So what is your thought on this thing? Where should we place our priority?
Let me try first. It's a tough question.
Yes, it's a tough question. Just to get the frank view on this thing, because at the day is what is best for the country. Yeah? Of course, we want local to grow. That one is given. There's no. I mean, we shouldn't neglect our local. If our local ecosystem is strong, that means our country becomes stronger. But at the same time, also we have to rely on the foreign investment as well. So how do we navigate these tricky questions?
Yeah, it's really a tricky situation, but I believe it's a matter of balancing the both. Because if we are too protective of all the local companies, then we may not be able to, to learn from those more advanced country or the more advanced company, the know-how and some of the technology. But if we do not control the foreign investment and neglected the interests of the local company, then our local company may not grow. So coming from a JV perspective, I mean, we have to strike a win-win situation. So when Hitachi and Sunway came together, we have areas where we can complement each other. That's how the company has grown, over the last 7 years. And I think this kind of collaboration also could happen to other company as well, marrying the foreign company with the local company, or let the local company coming in to be part of the ecosystem and then grow together. Because I think as a ICT industry, it will definitely continue to grow, right? As more and more digital economy rise from the demand side. So I think the market is big enough, basically, for both the foreign and local moving forward.
Thank you, Eric, for quite a frank view on this thing. Any more views with regard to this question?
Let me try to add on to this. Okay. Now, I think is what Eric is saying is agreed. The market is big enough in Malaysia to accommodate both domestic and international. Right. I give you an example of countries like our neighboring countries. Why are they growing leaps and bounds? Because they are not being protective of their own industry. They are in fact bringing in foreign investors, like someone to Meng was saying. You have the Googles of the world, the Amazons of the world, the Alibabas are already operating in those countries. Was there any protection? The answer is no. In fact, and you know that as I just mentioned, the moratorium is in place. There are a lot of overspilling into some countries like Malaysia, and even Batam is attracting Singapore data centers to come over.
Yeah.
So these are the things. And talking about East Malaysia, I think maybe a year ago, Indonesia had declared that Kalimantan is going to be the new city of Indonesia, the new capital. Whether that's going to happen, some say it's not going to happen, some say it will. irrespective whether it's going to happen or not, there will be a lot of potential to have data centers in East Malaysia for the reason because there's going to be a lot of cross-border data exchange, a lot of cross-border of businesses, digital businesses, and this is going to be what I see in the Vision 2030.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a very good view, Patrick. Quite the day is perhaps bringing in the foreign investments, which is not cannibalizing the local market, is something that that should be done, because apart from bringing that capacity, it can help to strengthen our local ecosystem. So I believe like AIMS also, I mean, you have been partnering with a lot of multinational from different countries, and how it has really uplifted AIMS as one of the regional players. So I believe you have your own strategy of how you collaborate with foreign investors, right? Maybe you want to share what are the strategy?
Okay, I believe in terms of foreign investment, we should encourage them to come in. But in terms of incentive, we should be given equal incentive to both, right? To compete in a fair playing ground. Right? What Malaysia is lacking is, you see, most of the data center operator in Malaysia would say 70% of them are local player. There are some joint venture and so on. The bigger operator is probably NTT, right? We should attract more international players such as like Equinix, Global Switch, the kind of operator coming in. I believe there are certain customer segment that will actually tag along with them when they go to certain region. Example, right? Maybe certain company in US, Europe, they want to expand to Asia. They will engage their existing service provider to help them to search for a location. If their data center footprint happen to be in Hong Kong or Singapore, default they will go into this country, right? So if they have a footprint in Malaysia, I believe they will promote that as well. When the pie is bigger to share around, I believe there are incentive, there are revenue growth for local player as well. So we should not restrict them from coming in. In fact, we should welcome them, increase our competition, and when the pie grow bigger, we will have a bigger share of the benefit.
And also the local players also have to look beyond Malaysian market as well, right?
Yes.
So it's perhaps the Malaysian market maybe it's too small for a local company to grow.
Yeah, for AIMS, actually our focus actually now is beyond Malaysia. We are focusing into the ASEAN region. We have built up a terrestrial network that connecting to Singapore, into Thailand, into Vietnam, and so on. So we will make all these ASEAN country our playing ground. So we are going to extend our footprint into Bangkok, into Ho Chi Minh, into Hanoi, so that when all these content provider, right, currently they're expanding out from Singapore, they come to Malaysia, and so for the next few years, I believe that they are looking into other ASEAN country, so that to make their content faster to the end user. So we want to actually help them to achieve that.
Thank you. So I believe I think we have gotten quite comprehensive input and view from the panelists. So maybe before I close, I'm going to give maybe 1 or 2 minutes each for each of the panelists to wrap up, and then to wrap up your thoughts and your thinking about this thing, and then we can, before we close, maybe we start with Llyod.
Okay, I think Malaysia has a very good potential to be the next hub out of Singapore. We just have to have the right policy in place, and also to attract them to come in, and with the connectivity that we build or going to build in the future, there's no brainer that Malaysia is actually a good alternative site to Singapore. Right? Yeah.
Okay, Eric.
Okay, I think we all agree that Malaysia has what it takes to become the next data center hubs. But maybe I just say a few words more on as a cloud service provider perspective. So we are actually putting a lot of focus because we don't own data center building ourselves. So we actually partner with data center owners, and then we build the cloud and then provide the service around the cloud offerings, including cybersecurity services. So this is one area that I think also is important to be part of the ecosystem, to make Malaysia a data center and cloud hub in the region. With the kind of offering that we have, we also can help to develop the talent and continue to to grow this business, and also help the SMEs to be part of the digital transformation journey. So hopefully, with the help of MDEC, we can work closely to, really create or to grow this digital economy together.
Patrick?
Oh, yes, okay. Basically, to sum up, I think the answer right now is that we need to improve the digital infrastructure, the ecosystem on both, not just bringing the clients in, bringing the investors in, but improving on the performance and safety. The lessons that we learned from COVID-19 is the adoption of digital transformation now, digital transformation first, and digital transformation always. A recent survey, basically what I read recently, shows that organizations indicated strong sentiment towards increasing investment for cloud services beyond 2020. Okay, in Malaysia, we are seeing traditional retailers expanding into e-commerce. You're buying things on online now. You can see before we never heard about companies like Shopee's or Lazada's or even Grab's. They are coming in all these are omni-channel revenues. And also banks are embracing new channels to drive the digital customer experience, differentiate themselves and compete. So the growth, the year-on-year growth, what I read from the IDC forecast is 21% for infrastructure as a service for 2021 across Malaysia and Southeast Asia countries. So that is basically what I hope having Malaysia to grow as a hub. Also, not forgetting its people. English is one of the most important factor to basically be to compete against the other countries. And we have plenty of land, but then again, there is also the consistent concern of staff shortages. There are, even though maybe some says there are none, I beg to differ, because Uptime survey shows that the year-on-year shortage of skills sets is basically an alarming rate. That's all I can say. Thank you.
So thank you. So it is quite interesting input and thought from each of the panelists in this session today. So if I can recap, so we talk about the talent, about the criteria that Malaysia has, what it takes to be a hub in terms of geographical position, in terms of talent, in terms of basic infrastructure, and obviously there are some challenges that we need to address in terms of connectivity. And then how do we strike the balance between promoting foreign investments and developing our local ecosystem, and how that the two sides of the investment can work together for the benefit of the country. And obviously, I think Malaysia has a potential to be a data center hub in ASEAN. And obviously, the pandemic COVID-19 have taught us some of the hard lessons that we have to take into account for us to be prepared in this kind of challenging environment years ahead. So again, on behalf of MDEC, on behalf of organizer, I'd like to thank Mr. Llyod, VP of Sales Aims, Mr. Eric Fu, Acting Head Cloud Security Infrastructure Services, Hitachi Sunway, and lastly, Mr. Patrick Shah, VP of South Asia of Uptime Institute. Thanks again for your valuable time, and then we really appreciate your thought and your view in this thing, and we look forward again Malaysia achieving its aspiration to be a digital capital of ASEAN. Again, thank you very much. See you later. Bye.
Thank you.
An engaging panel indeed. Thank you to the speaker, moderator, and the audience. That's right, you, ladies and gentlemen, for your dedication and your time. And we have concluded Digital Investment Summit at MTM 2020 for day 4. Once again, let's thank all our esteemed speakers for high powering our morning and our day with their outlooks, their ideas, and insights on pragmatizing the digital economy amidst today's unprecedented uncertainties. We invite our participants to join us as we resume our agenda tomorrow at 10 a.m. You're welcome to reach out to the event admin via the chat box for any form of assistance you require. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we end the 4th day with a high note and immeasurable thanks. Stay tuned and see you tomorrow.